Hey y'all, Season of Brad here. So the other day I was talking with some of my friends about our time in PA school and just how difficult of a time it was for us. Just the sheer amount of stress and anxiety was just insane. The most difficult thing for me at that time was just learning how to study. Up until grad school just kind of came easy for me. In high school, I played sports, so I never studied. And then when I got to college, I ran cross country and track. And so I put in just the bare minimum effort in my schooling and still made a pretty respectable GPA. And so when I got to PA school, I assumed I could do the same thing because that's what I've done essentially my entire life. Man, was I wrong. In fact, I didn't even make it through the first semester before I ended up being dropped from the program for such poor grades. But for some reason, they allowed me to restart the following semester and start from scratch. Up until that point, I never really failed at anything, and so I took it very hard. I was so just embarrassed with my failure and just angry at myself. So when I started with that new class, I had the mindset that I wanted to finish at the top of my class. I was going to outwork and outcompete every single person in that freaking class, almost as like a punishment to myself for failing the first time. This meant having to completely uproot what I thought studying was. During my time in PA school, I discovered several crucial tips for studying. These things helped me not just survive PA school, but thrive in it, and actually ended up helping a few of my other classmates as well. So I thought I would share these tips to anybody who is struggling in their grad school or nervous about starting their higher education journey. So let's get into it. Okay, tip number one is find your study buddy. This one is by far the most important tip for me. Your job is to find one other person in your class. That one other person is now your life partner for the rest of the program, and you both will study together religiously. You need that one other person to discuss the content with, to quiz each other, and to maybe help explain the material to each other if they didn't fully understand it the first time around. The important part of this is to have just one study partner. Having two can sometimes be okay, but any more than that, you become increasingly less efficient at studying that content. If you're in a large group, it's much easier to get distracted or to zone out or even get left behind if you don't fully understand a certain part of that content that you're studying. And if there's a lot of people in that group that doesn't understand the content, it's almost like the blind leading the blind. Having just one other person to study that content with, you become much more efficient at not only going through all the content, but also remembering it for the exam. It also helps with accountability. Higher education, whether it be PA school, law school, or whatever, requires a daily grind. It means every single day waking up, hitting the books, and burning through as much content as possible. Having that one other person will help keep you accountable for making yourself study as much as possible, but will also help them stay accountable as well. While yes, it's possible to do all of this solo, it's much more likely that you'll get it done and do it effectively if you have somebody else there with you. This next tip works for us personally, but this one may not work for everybody. So in PA school, our testing material came mostly from the PowerPoints that we would go through during class. So every single evening, me and my study partner would meet up on campus and study for a couple hours every single night religiously. During that time, we would try to memorize the PowerPoint slides almost word for word. We would study 2 or 3 slides and then would go back and try to recite those to each other without looking. Then we would do a couple more and then would stop and go back and try to recite all the ones we've already covered for that evening. And then do a few more and then a few more and then go back and try to recite all of them all at once. Rinse and repeat until we would cover all of the material in that PowerPoint. We would do this because during an exam, I could almost visualize that PowerPoint slide or that page where the content of that question came from, and it would help me answer the question. And also when it came to a question where I didn't fully understand the content, at least being able to almost verbatim recite the material on that PowerPoint slide or that page could more often than not help me get the question right, even if I don't fully understand the material. It was very rare when it came to that, but it did happen sometimes, and it did help me get the question right on the exam, which is like the main objective of most exams in grad school. Okay guys, tip number 3 is form a routine. As I've said before, grad school is a full-time commitment. To give yourself the best chance for success, you need to form a daily routine and stick to that routine almost religiously. For example, every single day after class, me and my study partner would, after class, go to the gym and lift weights. I also had goals of gaining muscle mass during PA school also. After the gym, we would separate and get dinner and do our own thing for like an hour or two. Then would meet back up on campus around 7:30 in the evening and would study at least 3 to 4 hours every single evening. Most weekends were reserved for fun things, you know, like going to the lake or house parties at my house. But during the week, you grinded. That was our routine, and we stuck to it like clockwork for the entirety of PA school. And I feel like that contributed to a lot of my success. Okay guys, my tip number 4 is do not study at home. During grad school, I rarely studied at my house. I have found I have a really bad problem with procrastination and getting sidetracked. If I tried studying at home, I would make it probably 30 minutes before I would notice, you know, there are dishes in the sink, and of course, doing dishes sounds more appealing than studying does. And so doing the dishes would then lead to me wiping down the counters. And then that would snowball into me vacuuming and then cleaning the entire house. Because again, all of that sounded more appealing to me than studying did. So if you want to study effectively, get out of the house. This will force you to be in an environment free of distractors and obligations and put you in a place where you are more focused and on task. This will ultimately give you the best chance to succeed. Alright guys, my last tip in this video is kind of weird, but hear me out. Every time that you study, chew a particular flavor of gum or eat a certain flavor of candy. Then when you go into your exam, bring that same gum or candy with you. Your brain will make these subtle connections between the flavor of gum or the flavor of candy or just the act of chewing with the content material that you're studying, and could help you recall that same material for your exam. Also, the act of chewing can kind of distract those ADHD parts of your brain, so you'll be more focused and locked into the task at hand, which is passing your exam. Gum and certain hard candies are one of the few foods that are allowed in most testing environments, so I had a piece of gum with me almost every single exam for the entirety of PA school. I'm not sure if there are studies done on this, but if there are and you know about them, let me know in the comments down below. But guys, that's all for today. If y'all are interested at all about my profession as a physician assistant, check out some of my other videos. And if you would, like the video and leave a comment about some of your favorite study tips. And guys, as always, have a good one.